with all the stories making the headlines here and around the world this Friday night, it's the ITV News at 10.
A trail of destruction as flash floods sweep through the heart of Europe. 120 people have died, hundreds are still missing. As torrential rain cascades through Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands and Switzerland, thousands face losing everything.
We're stuck in the house without electricity, without food, without water during 48 hours. They just could see cars taken by the rivers.
After America's heat wave and Africa's droughts, our science editor Tom Clark asks whether Europe is feeling the full force of a warming planet. Also in News at 10 tonight. Double jab travellers from France will still have to quarantine on return to England from Monday. Tonight, travel companies say the government is making it up as they go along. As COVID cases surge beyond 50,000 a day, a stark warning by England's chief medical officer of what he calls scary numbers, just days before all restrictions end. The faces of those missing in Cuba after they defied the communist government on America's doorstep. Whilst Europe grapples with floods, Kenya worries whether climate change is also a threat to its tea industry. And just 1 week to go before the greatest sporting event on the planet prepares to put on a show in the age of COVID.
This is ITV News at 10 with Rageh Omaar.
Good evening. Powerless to do anything against the relentless force of nature, whole communities in Western Europe can only watch in disbelief as apocalyptic flooding continues to level all in its path. In the worst hit towns and villages in Germany, nothing is left of some homes, a lifetime of memories washed away in minutes. It is far more than simple possessions being lost, though. More than 120 people are known to have died, with hundreds still missing somewhere among the waterways that were bustling communities little over 48 hours ago. We'll look at how this disaster happened and just what role climate change might have played. Of more immediate concern right now for people in its path who have been through so much already is the threat of more rain and further tragedy.
If you wondered how these floods could have taken quite so many lives, look at these pictures. The town of Erftstadt-Blessem, just to the west of Cologne, where the waters ripped through a gravel pit and then tore away the land around it. Where once there was a footpath and cycleway, now a cliff edge into the turbid waters below. If you were in the wrong place at the wrong time here, you stood no chance. In the town of Gemund nearby, they spoke of barely believable water levels. The water was as high as the sign there, said the owner of this hotel. Our livelihood is completely destroyed, but at least our family is okay. And that's the important thing. As the water level has subsided a little, this is just the most dramatic evidence of what nature can do when driven to extremes. For more than 50 hours it rained here on land that was already sodden. No amount of preparation could have contained it.
Europe on the whole is prepared, but when you get extreme events such as what we've seen, 2 months worth of rainfall in 2 days, it's very, very difficult to cope.
In the historic city of Koblenz, where one great river, the Moselle, joins another, the Rhine, dozens are still missing. The waters still stretch as far as the eye can see. The land here is flat, the rivers are large, floods do happen, but not like this. Chancellor Angela Merkel has seemed visibly shocked by what's hit her country. I grieve for those who've lost their lives in this disaster, she said. We still don't know the number, but it will be many. Some in the basements of their homes, some as firefighters were trying to bring others to safety. And to their loved ones, my deepest sympathies. Much of the water now has moved on to Belgium. This is the River Meuse that runs through the Belgian city of Liège. It is hovering centimetres below flood level for now, and not even the sandbags are going to provide much protection. The trees tell you how far the river is from its normal course and how deep the water is now. The residents tell you just how freakish this has been.
We were used to small floodings, but this time was really crazy. The water was reaching the basement so my parents were stuck in the house without electricity, without food, without water during 48 hours.
The Netherlands too is on the edge. They know a thing or two about managing water here, but the scene in the eastern town of Roermond shows that even they are struggling. There are fears a local dike may soon be breached by unimaginable quantities of water that are still a long way from the sea. James Mates, News at 10.
To put it into context, the flooding is unlike anything the region has seen in decades. Experts say it was triggered by a low-pressure vortex circling over Western Europe. It brought 6 inches of rain in just 24 hours, causing the River Aire in Germany to burst its banks. The River Rhine and the River Meuse, which runs through Belgium and the Netherlands, also overflowed. Lucy Hoff is in Liège in Belgium for us tonight. Lucy, the level of devastation is, to put it mildly, catastrophic, but what have people there been telling you?
Well, Rageh, just staggering accounts of the devastation that people have experienced over the course of the last 48 hours. In that short windows, people have come back to their homes to find their livelihoods completely destroyed. Houses have become debris, swept up in the floods, cars overturned in the roads surrounding this area, businesses completely destroyed. Some people saying that they were forced to spend 2 nights in crowded rescue centres. Others said that they were trapped in their homes on the upper floors of their houses waiting for rescue, some without any access to food or clean water. Now, the rescue operation is still very much ongoing. Tragically, the death toll in this region alone has surpassed 20. Around 20 further people are still believed to be missing. The rescue operation is taking place in enormously difficult circumstances, widespread power shortages, thousands of people without any power at all, and clearly a difficult weekend to come.
And Lucy, the worst isn't over yet, is it, unfortunately?
That's right. I mean, we are being told there is the risk of further rainfall this weekend. We know that the Netherlands is on particular watch to see what happens over the weekend, given that this river behind me, the River Meuse, that as you can see is running dangerously high to its banks and, covering entire trees. So people are being told to be on high alert. Certainly the people here in Liège are being told to be cautious and a sense that there could be some more devastation to come.
Lucy Hoff in Liège. Thank you very much indeed, Lucy. Now, the downpours which have brought that flooding to Western Europe are not the only extreme weather of late. Far from it, the United States and Canada have experienced record high temperatures, whilst in Lapland, of all places, the mercury passed 33 degrees Celsius last week. Many argue all of this points to one cause: climate change and the impact humans are having on the planet.
There are rainstorms and there are those with the power to rearrange a landscape. But can we expect more of these weather extremes as our planet heats up? Did climate change make this happen? The EU's leader seems convinced of it.
It is the intensity and the length of these events where science tells us this is a clear indication of climate change.
Europe's floods were caused by the same storm that dumped rain on London and the southeast on Monday. A glancing blow from a weather system that hit the continent with full force. Climate change doesn't cause storms, they're random weather events. At each degree the atmosphere warms, it can hold 7% more water. Climate change makes severe weather more frequent and more extreme.
We're becoming more and more sure that we can see these links, these human fingerprints on these types of events. We know that these slow-moving, really heavy rainfall systems are more likely with climate change, but we should be very concerned about what we're seeing here.
While Western Europe floods, North America burns. Wildfires in California, just one of the hallmarks of extreme heat. In British Columbia in Canada, temperatures reached 49.6 degrees, shattering by 5 degrees a previous temperature record. On Tuesday in California's Death Valley, mercury hit 54 degrees and saw its hottest ever 24-hour period. At the same time, 5,000 miles away in Lapland, it was 33.6 degrees, close to a century-old temperature record.
I'm shocked, but not surprised. And actually a little bit scared about what's coming. So climate scientists like myself have been warning about this for at least 2 decades now, longer than that, and governments haven't acted.
Just last month, the UK's Committee on Climate Change warned government it was woefully underprepared for climate extremes, that changes to planning rules, building codes and infrastructure schemes were politically unexciting. Perhaps scenes like these in Europe will focus minds on just why they're important. Tom Clark, News at 10.
And we will return to the issue of climate change later in the programme when John Irvine reports from Kenya, where people are worried the harvest, which produces so many cups of tea we enjoy and earn Kenya vital income, is being damaged by extreme weather. But first to the pandemic, and on Monday travel rules are being relaxed so that double jab Brits won't have to quarantine on their return from amber list countries. But tonight, the government announced that that won't apply to France. We'll talk to Libby about that in a moment, but also on Monday is something of a leap into the unknown when COVID restrictions are lifted in England. Once billed as a great moment of release, there is now a certain anxiety around just how much this measure could lead to infections and hospitalizations rising. Cases are already at their highest since January, with more than 50,000 reported today. Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty has warned there could be trouble ahead.
It's not over yet, not even close. The free testing kits being handed out in this market, a sign that the virus is once again spreading rapidly. The Chief Medical Officer warning a spike in hospital cases could mean new restrictions are needed.
It doesn't take many doublings till we're in actually quite scary numbers again. And of course, for every individual person in hospital, this is potentially very dangerous, and there will be people who die or have lifelong effects from this. So I don't think we should underestimate the fact that we could get into trouble again surprisingly fast. If it looks as if things are not topping out, we do have to look again at and see where we think things are going.
In England, 1 in every 95 people has the virus. That's up from 1 in 160 a week ago. Across the UK, hospital admissions are rising too. On average, just under 600 people a day are being admitted, although that's far fewer than the daily rate of 2,200 at the same stage of the last wave over Christmas. COVID patients had all but disappeared from the wards at this Sunderland hospital. Now they're arriving again, along with many hundreds seeking treatment for other illnesses. Doctors say the pressures are immense.
We've gone from 2 patients in the last month to 84 patients, and that's on the background of increasing number of non-COVID patients. So our emergency departments have been seeing on occasions up to 900 patients between them. 500's the norms, and I think the staffing challenges are also causing issues. I think it's that perfect storm is the way I would describe it.
So is it really safe for everything in England to open up on Monday?
It is safe to open up on Monday, but we do need to ensure that people take personal responsibility for the measures. So what the government is saying is we're taking away the legal restrictions.
But at this pub in South London, they say it's too soon to abandon safety measures, with case numbers soaring.
I mean, we're very sceptical. We're taking a more cautious approach. We're going to keep it exactly the same rules that we have been doing. The table service, the hand sanitisers, the screens, we're going to keep everything the same. until we start seeing case numbers come down.
The worry is not everyone will take such a cautious approach when it's no longer the law. Libby Wiener, News at 10, Westminster.
Well, Libby joins me now to talk about all this, including that announcement we mentioned about fully vaccinated arrivals from France still having to quarantine despite something causing infuriation amongst travel companies and passengers tonight. Libby, what is going on is the question that many people want an answer to. And what's been the reaction?
Well, just when you thought the chaos surrounding foreign travel couldn't get any worse, it has. Just a week ago, the government was promising people who'd been double jabbed that they wouldn't have to quarantine when they returned from so-called amber list countries. But tonight, a Friday night, we learned that people coming back from France, that wouldn't apply to. They would still have to quarantine. Now, there are thousands of families who will have gone to France during the last week and are about to go, whose plans will have been thrown into complete disarray by this. I spoke to one couple who said that the lack of notice was completely absurd and they felt totally let down. Now, the government says it's because there is a concern about the beta variant, that's the South African variant, being seeded here from France. There don't seem to be any cases here at the moment to support that, and public health officials in France are most worried about the Delta variant, so all a bit of a puzzle. This is what Labour had to say about that announcement tonight.
This evening we have complete chaos. In effect, the government has announced yet another category for travel, and they've done it on a Friday evening like this. The government has never had a plan for international travel, and tonight, yet again, it is travellers and the travel industry that are paying the price.
And Libby, this all comes just ahead of Monday when all restrictions are lifted here.
Yes, well, last week, the Prime Minister also said that he believed that because of the vaccines, we had severed the link, in his words, between infections and serious disease and deaths. I think the problem for the Prime Minister is that his chief medical officer clearly doesn't subscribe to that. His words about scary numbers in hospital, I think, will trouble many people. And a group of international experts have also expressed concern about us lifting all measures at once. An advisor to the New Zealand government, where there are no cases of COVID, but they still have mandatory masks on public transport. He said he was astounded and seemed to think that Britain had abandoned the basic principles of public health. So there are many people who don't feel it is yet safe to lift those restrictions.
Libby, that's very informative. Thank you very much indeed. Well, if, as predicted, case numbers soar after Monday's reopening in England, it follows that the number of people forced to self-isolate will also soar. Widespread pinging from the NHS app is already causing staff shortages in factories, hospitality and the NHS itself, to name a few. It's been suggested the app could be made less sensitive to keep a lid on so-called pingdemic. But for now, the government says it's just doing what it's supposed to do.
It's the thing every small business is now dreading. Not a buzz, but a ping from the Test and Trace app, which has forced all but one of the barbers at this shop into isolation, costing the business over £1,000 a day.
They've had their PCRs test negative, they've come back with a flow test negative. There does feel like a little bit of an overkill. Why are we locking them indoors when every government standard of testing has come back negative?
And it's hitting you hard in the meantime?
Yeah, hugely.
Some hospitals are being hit hard too. At Birmingham Women's, 150 staff are at home. Its chief executive tweeting, 36 babies born in one day yesterday. With the number of NHS staff in isolation, it's a genuine miracle. Hats, but not masks, off to the team. But it's led some medical leaders to call for health workers to be exempt.
If we can clearly demonstrate as much as we can a person isn't infectious, having had a negative PCR test, then to prevent harm, then the NHS should be allowed to bring those staff back to work.
But other services are also starting to suffer. 15% of bin collections from this Birmingham depot have now been affected. In this street, rubbish has been piling up since Tuesday. Residents are worried if the app forces more workers to isolate.
If it keeps on doing this, then what are the implications for next week? Will the rubbish get
collected next week. Right now, that is getting quite smelly, and with this hot weather, that can only get worse.
The government maintains the app is one of the best tools it has to combat the virus, but ministers are now under pressure to improve it. Experts say it was designed for a time when fewer people were mixing.
The problem with the app, it's quite sensitive. And as more and more people have started downloading the app, the biggest challenge is the number of people using it creates the number of false positives to go up.
Self-isolation rules will be relaxed in mid-August, but business groups say an overhaul is needed now to prevent millions more workers and customers being forced to stay at home just as restrictions are being lifted. Ben Chapman, News at 10, Birmingham.
And over on our website are details of which shops, venues and attractions will be asking customers to keep wearing face masks from Monday. That's at itv.com/news. When thousands of anti-government protesters took to the streets of Cuba on Sunday, they were doing something few had dared for decades under the communist regime. Such public displays of criticism can lead Cubans in jail. And as police moved in to squash the demonstrations, that was the fate which befell many. 5 days on, there are families still trying to find out what has happened to their missing loved ones.
They are the faces of those missing in Cuba, rounded up and detained for demonstrating against the government. Almost a week on, their families have no idea where they are or in what condition. Every day, new faces are added as people exploit a few minutes of internet access to get their appeals out.
Right now, we had a lot of friends missing, disappeared.
Solvig Font was detained at this protest. She says it was peaceful until plainclothed police officers arrived. 11 of her friends were dragged away. She was arrested and is now under surveillance. But she's determined to speak of what drove her and others to the streets.
We have tried to say we have a lot of problems, and the state had to answer to us, and the state had to change because we are in misery.
The sudden uprising took authorities by surprise. The level of violence they unleashed to suppress the crowds surprised the demonstrators. Officially, one person died. Those now released from custody believe many more did.
Ha habido mucha violencia. La policía ha matado personas. Ha matado personas a golpe físico, ha matado personas usando su arma.
Henry Constantine is a journalist who remains in detention. His mother, living in Miami, fears he and his colleagues will now face long prison sentences.
Quiero pedirle ayuda al mundo por la liberación de mi hijo, por la liberación de las muchachas que trabajan en la hora de Cuba. Son jóvenes valiosos, son jóvenes que necesita Cuba.
With the internet cut, it's hard for the international community to monitor what's happening in Cuba. President Biden says the US is considering providing an external internet supply. In Miami, where many Cubans are exiled, that is not enough.
The US government, when it sees, the repression that we're seeing 90 miles away, we've intervened in countries throughout the world for things that are similar in nature. And so I think, that has to be discussed as a possibility.
A possibility, perhaps, but for now, the only action will be from protesters rather than the president. Emma Murphy, News at 10, Miami.
Now, there are a few things us Brits like more than popping the kettle on and having a cuppa. We get through around 100 million cups of tea every day. Long before reaching your mug, though, many start life on plantations in Kenya, one of the world's premier producers of tea. But conditions need to be just right for these delicate tea leaves to grow, and climate change is threatening the harvest and the livelihoods of the farmers and pickers who bring you the perfect brew.
There's a good chance your next cuppa comes from here, because the UK drinks more tea from Kenya than from any other country. Indeed, Kenya is the world's biggest exporter of what is, apart from water, the world's most consumed drink. Around 3 million Kenyans rely on the tea industry for their income. It all starts with picking, and tea farmer Jane Nyambura showed me how. 2 leaves and a bud.
Yeah, and that's the best that you select for good quality tea.
I think Britain's tea drinkers would go thirsty if they were relying on the likes of me.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you should appreciate the lady who picks the tea. They do a lot of work, and it's hard work.
And it is mainly women.
And it's mainly women.
Tea is a fussy plant that depends on the right temperature, altitude, and on reliable rainfall. On our way here, just a few miles north, we crossed latitude 0 degrees, which is, of course, the equator. And over the years, it's been the consistency of the equatorial climate that has made Kenya such a powerhouse when it comes to tea. But things are different now. All the farmers and pickers we spoke to said they'd noticed changes in the climate, with weather becoming more extreme.
3, 2, 1, and cue Nina.
I never ever expected to see frost in the tea farms. I actually thought that was for other countries, but I've seen frost in the last few years.
Tea production only gets mechanized when the leaves reach the factory. After quality control, they're dried and cut, and within a few hours the finished article appears. Last year, Kenyan tea exports were worth more than $1 billion. The pickers get paid according to the weight of leaves they harvest each day. These pickers say that climate change is stunting growth, resulting in reduced yields. They reckon their harvest has gone down by a quarter. Are you worried about the future?
In fact, we are very worried about the future because I don't know what will happen in the future if that process continues.
The African continent produces just 4% of global carbon emissions, so these people are being affected by environmental changes they have not caused. Efforts are being made to develop hardier tea bushes at a time when many livelihoods here are threatened by diminishing returns. John Irvine, News at 10, Central Kenya.
Climate change and Kenya's vital tea industry. Finally, it's already been an enthralling summer of sport, and just around the corner is the greatest show on earth. The Olympic Games gets underway in Tokyo 1 week from today. And after success at Rio and London, Team GB has high hopes of another gold rush. Even if fans can't be there to watch, the athletes are hoping to put some smiles on all our faces.
For any athlete, Olympic success is the dream. For Team GB, there's been plenty of golden moments in recent years. But with all eyes soon on Tokyo for the Games of the 32nd Olympiad, what will these COVID Olympics mean for those aiming to follow the greats? With 1 week to go, Team GB continue to arrive in Japan. The badminton squad, the latest to touch down. Despite all the challenges COVID has brought, Team GB have high hopes they can deliver.
You know, we'll be medal competitive across a significant number of events. There is a medal target of over 45 medals, and we'll see how we get on with that. But this is a very, very high-performing team.
But with Japan experiencing a surge of COVID cases, these Olympics will be held under a state of emergency without spectators. Many have questioned the wisdom of going ahead. But Team GB's athletes say they've received a warm welcome in their preparations here.
We just don't want to kind of upset anyone by being here. We just want to kind of put smiles on people's faces. And we know we can't fill the stadiums like they'd hoped, but maybe if they can get it on TV, we can bring an exciting and fun and enjoyable games and make sure we all keep each other safe as athletes so that there's no more strain on this country.
First and third for Great Britain. Great Britain's Rebecca Adlington won 2 golds in 2008 in Beijing. She says these games may be like no other before, but athletes must stay focused.
We've never experienced anything like this. So again, it's really hard to say what's going to work, what's not going to work. I think it's going to be one of those, they've got to be really on the ball when it comes to restrictions, because there's more to lose. If they test positive now over the next time, it's going to be really obviously detrimental.
The Olympic motto is faster, higher, stronger. This week, the IOC membership will decide whether to add the word together to that motto. Overcoming the challenges of these games will need that spirit more than ever.
Keir Starmer rearranges
News at 10.
The Olympics in just a week's time. And that's it from us tonight. Whatever you're doing, have a very great weekend. Good night.